Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Adam Hammerman's cell phone says it's 4 o'clock, so it must be 4 o'clock. Um, Friends, as I have done typically once or twice a semester, I have a list of things to discuss with you about what's going on at the college. And after I've gone through that, I'm happy to talk about whatever you want to talk about. Uh, we have finally, after the passage of geologic time, we have finished the new history of New York Medical College. Some of you will remember Dr. Worship from the Department of Urology's History of New York Medical College. Is Dr. Messina here? Did you know Dr. Worship? Yeah, yeah. Oh, and as I said this morning when I was invited for the job interview, I went on Barnes & Noble used books and bought a copy. And I'm pretty sure at my initial interview with the search committee, I knew more about the history of New York Medical College than some of the people at the table. Anyway, um, I had learned when I came to work here that the Archdiocese in the 1970s had commissioned a history of the college and that they had never published it. And when I tracked down the author, he told me that he was a freshly minted PhD in history from Fordham, that he had been hired to write 7 chapters, which he had done, and that the 8th chapter was to be the Archdiocese's vision for the future of New York Medical College. And since that had never been written, the book had never been published. Through the heroic work of the communications office and the library and the help of the development office, illustrations were rounded up. I did a bunch of oral history interviews, and we now have an up-to-date history of the college, and the copies arrived within the last week. It is designed not as a scholarly tome with 5,000 footnotes, but it is colorful, lots of pictures. If you, for some of you, if you want to see how you used to look, you might find yourself in the book. I have not been here long enough to meet that criteria. I look old enough as it is. It will be available in the. Thank you. It will be available in the bookstore and online. And thanks to the Alumni Association Development Office for for funding it. Janet here from physical therapy. You see, I we got to work on this, okay? So, uh, and I'm really still compliant. I really am. I got witnesses. Uh, uh, Rob Amler here came in with me. Rob, can you share with the group how we did with the new state funding and disaster medicine, please? Maybe somebody pass Rob the microphone so we're sure everyone can hear him. It's right. It's uh,
Every now and can you hear me? Now you can hear me. Yeah. Every now and then, a little bit good news comes our way. Thanks to a lot of people in this room and the center director, Dr. David Markinson, who's not on campus this afternoon, we were able to land a $925,000 grant from New York State, which in itself is very, very good. But the significance is this is part of an annual, actually perennial grant program. Some of the other centers in the state that have been funded on this program have been getting this money for 10, even 15 years. So this is an ongoing program. And if we don't mess up too badly, we might just get money for another several years in the $1 million range. Most of the centers are funded. It's called NISTAR. Some of you have probably read about it. Most of these centers are funded at $1 million a year. We're just ramping up, so we're at 925,000. But 2 years ago, we were at $500,000. So we're definitely going in the right direction. Again, if you run into Dr. David Markinson in the hall, ask him for some lunch money because we're doing very well. And it's the Center for Disaster Medicine that provides training in disaster preparedness, disaster response, countermeasures against chemical terrorism, biological agents, and so forth. So this is not just a great award, a great recognition of New York Medical College, but also an important part of what we do for society. Thanks.
Thanks, Rob. Next on my list is, as I usually do, I want to go over some buildings and grounds issues with you. Those of you who have been faithfully coming to the town hall meetings will remember that I spent roughly uh, 10 minutes from 2012 until 2016 constantly telling you how much progress was not being made on the driveway through the West Woods to connect Skyline to Sunshine Cottage Road, and that I had aspirations that sometime before I died or retired would get the driveway built. And we have gotten the driveway built, obviously, but this has now turned into the story of Parcel 5 and Munger, right? So how many years has it been since we evacuated Munger to go to Skyline? And I keep telling you, we're working on it. And we're working on it. We're now on our second administration in the executive branch of the legislature. We're on our third leader of the county legislature majority. The essence of the negotiations are a right to demolish, preceded by a right to do environmental abatement of the asbestos and the uranium tile, to deal with the underground conduits with electricity and steam and water, which go to supply the grasslands in Westchester Medical Center, to replace the existing structure with what is tentatively planned to be 2 buildings that will be shorter than Munger and will contain roughly 100 beds for apartments for the interns and residents of Westchester Medical Center, roughly 400 beds for our students, study space, community space for the students, uncommitted space, which is penciled in for the possibility of a program for hearing impaired children from New York, which has periodically expressed interest in co-locating with us, and a Bet Midrash, a synagogue to replace the temporary synagogue in Alumni House. The negotiations, not surprisingly, focus on how much the county wishes to be paid for that. You will remember that we have a $1 a year lease on the building, which has roughly a quarter of a century to go, that the property has very restrictive zoning. A developer cannot come along and build high-rise luxury condos on the property or a Hyatt Regency. And a new wrinkle was the expansion of Woodford Cottage with more barbed wire and another wing, which all of you can see when you make the turn on Sunshine Cottage Road, and what their aspirations are based on new rules for adolescent incarceration in the state of New York. That's what I can tell you. We are up to 1 to 2 meetings a week with it. And as some of you have asked me in previous town halls, even once we get the right to proceed, that's a 2 or 3 year project of environmental abatement, demolition, property preparation, and construction. I have given the town of Mount Pleasant my word that it would not turn into a large sheet of asphalt with a building in the middle of it, with preservation of as much grass as possible. And as I have told some of you, we hope to provide a home for the WIHD, the Autism Center, as a more permanent arrangement for them to remain on the grasslands as part of the deal. Uh, some of you asked me what's going on with the North 60, with Mr. Ferreri's project. I don't know anything more than I read in the papers. It is a development project twixt him and the county, and I am not privy to any special information. The only thing I can tell you, which is also a matter of public record, is the mayor in Mount Pleasant called the town supervisor, said there will be no residential facilities. We will not permit any apartments. It will be retail, a hotel perhaps, uh, a market. He has aspirations for rent laboratories for the biotech industry. He has aspirations for a children's health museum. But what I know is, as Will Rogers said, what I read in the papers. The long-awaited coffee shop is now actually, you can see what it will look like. I personally, when I toured the construction yesterday, it's surprising how much space it's there with all the piles of books and shelves and whatnot out of the space. It will have three principal functions. It will be a coffee shop. Uh, it will be a grab and go. There will not be preparing hot food. It will be wrapped items. You want a sandwich, you want a piece of cake, you want a yogurt, that sort of thing. Students want to pick up a quart of milk and they don't want to get in the car and go anywhere, or some other necessities for those living on campus. And it will be what is called, in our line of work, once again, a spirit shop. It doesn't mean, as we'd say, a liquor store. It means uh, you're in need of a New York Medical College sweatshirt, a T-shirt, a decal for the car, a hat. You want to send your relatives a, uh, a a sweatshirt for the holidays with the name of New York Medical College on it, so that your kid brother can think that they're looking really good around. That's what it'll be. Not periodically, I get letters saying, dear sir, our fifth grade class project, as everyone has been assigned to write about a university in the United States, and I got you. Please send me a sweatshirt, information about the school, and how the football team is doing. So, Vilma Bordenaro, in conjunction with Lessings, continues on the project to get food service in Skyline. Uh, what it looks like, no promises, what it looks like is some kind of cart kiosk uh, with the same kind of grab and go coffee, get a sandwich, that sort of thing. We do not envision having a grill top and someone cooking in the lobby of the building, but that is to be worked out. We had a Yom HaShoah program here in the auditorium earlier this week. The next program will be the screening of a documentary film called Big Sonia on May 15, right, Marie? Some of you might want to use this in teaching. There are lots of documentary films about Holocaust survivors. This is really the first that I have ever screened that intensely tackles the psychological problems of the children of survivors, what are called 2Gs. And there is a long section about going into a prison with the survivor speaking to prisoners about her story and their views of whether there's any meaning in their life. For those of you who do any teaching in prison medicine or concepts of hopelessness, you might find it a useful film. And Dr. McCarrick assures me that if Marie and I fill out enough forms, we can talk about CME for those of you in need of it. Next on the list, issues about personnel. Mr. Madero sent out the email about switching from Empire Blue Cross Blue Shield to United, and explained in the email that our analysis shows that more of the doctors used by the faculty and staff will be in network under the proposed new system. We are working on the math. I cannot affect many things. I cannot affect changes in healthcare costs in the metropolitan area. If, when they come in with proposals for what the new insurance costs, we are proposing to make you all financially whole. If there are increased costs from what is needed to provide the health insurance because of changes in premiums. Some people who have asked me about that have said, well, what would that mean about an overall cost of living increase? They are two different issues. It is our intention with the budget to do both. I just used the verb intention. I can't make any promises till I run all the numbers. I have, for multiple years, given the Board of Trustees a budget in the black. I will do that again. It will probably be another 4 to 6 weeks till I have any concrete numbers to talk about raises uh, and the money for the insurance. We have a bunch of searches going on. Dean Holtz is in the search for a vice dean of the graduate school. Dean Amler is in the end game of a vice dean of the School of Health Sciences and Practice. Dean Nadler is in a search for a senior associate dean of the School of Medicine. Dean Myers will be beginning a search for a vice dean for academic affairs. Chairs searches, there is one external candidate was interviewed this week for the chair of OBGYN. An internal candidate will be scheduled for interviews. The search committee for the chair of rehabilitation medicine has brought forward 7 candidates to Dean Nadler, who will be reviewing them. There continue to be interviews and progress with candidates for microbiology, immunology. There are several potential faculty research recruits who are under review. I'm going to turn my attention to some academic matters. We are in a new world for enrollment management in the School of Medicine. A gentleman who felt that he didn't get into medical school many years ago because, in his opinion, the United States has a computer system which tells admissions offices about people who are holding multiple acceptances. He viewed this as the reason he didn't get into medical school. He sued. He won. 2019 is the first year in the United States where there will be no national database of applicants holding on to multiple acceptances. People who have been offered a seat in medical school yesterday and today can inform the admissions office of, I plan to come, or it's a C verb, certify that I'm going to come. If you certify that you're going to come, then you are claiming you're going to give away any other acceptances you're going to come, you have, and you're going to come. If you plan to come, you are not making any such promises. But in either case, you've made a deposit. And you have until 3 weeks before school starts. And if you don't declare certified, you forego your deposit. We keep it. But if 5 days before classes start, you inform us, I'm not showing up because I got accepted off the wait list someplace else, we have no legal power to take any action. I can't affect that, neither can Karen Murray from the admissions office or Dean Nadler. That's the new national standard. All the allopathic medical schools in the United States are now flying on instruments to try to land the plane in the fog about how all this is going to work. The only thing I can tell you is the admissions office will maintain a wait list until we're several days into class. So we don't have any empty seats in the school. I can't think of anything else that can be done. That's the best that can be done, but that's the way it is. Um, if I forgot to tell you, this young man who felt that he didn't get in, what he did do is he went to law school and he was his own plaintiff's attorney in the case. Um, okay. When we have these town hall meetings, there's usually something personal I want to talk to you about. What's on my mind personally this year, this semester, is the campus letter I sent out on Monday about the murder in the suburbs of San Diego. I have unfortunately had to do this over and over again since I've been here. And I get three forms of comments about this, which I want to talk with you about whenever I do this. Some of you write me or the communications office or email me or stop me in the hall and say, thank you for doing that. That's really important. We're grateful. Some people say, what you do is wrong because you didn't send out a campus letter about this issue, which bothers me. Why didn't you do that? And I almost always get some saying, uh, you're outrageous, your politics are outrageous, your letter was outrageous, it's none of your business, and I perceive you criticizing someone or something that I think is important. Shut up and mind your own business, or I'm an alum and I'm never writing a check again. Um, so what I want to talk with you about is I want to share with you my reasonings for these. I was taught by the president of Duke when I was on the faculty that if you have a job like mine, you mind your business about doing the bully pulpit unless you are convinced that it is of imminent and essential importance to your campus. I have my opinion, like any citizen would have their opinion if you follow the news, about United States troops in the conflict in Syria or the conflict or the conduct of United States policy on our borders. But what will happen with federal support of student loans, the budget of the NIH, or whether or not the executive branch told the CDC that there are words you are forbidden to use in discussing public health, those issues I perceive of imminent and direct importance to what we do at New York Medical College. And that is why I will tend to write about that, but not about other issues which might bother you. You all have the right as citizens to also write letters to the editor or to your elected officials. I often do things that I do not communicate to the campus. I write op-eds in the Westchester Journal News. I give interviews on the local cable television. I get involved in other issues where I might use the bully pulpit of the college. But in conclusion, for those of you who have commented about why do you do this or not that, or I do agree or I don't agree, that's my reasoning about it. Um, there are a few questions that I have been given that I want to anticipate before we go to the mic. Students in the audience, if you are feeling upset or threatened, concerned, or worried about recent events of violence, the Student Affairs Office and the professional psychologists, psychiatrists, and counselors are there for you. Faculty, the Employee Assistance Program is there for you. I wish it was within my authority to make all this all better, but it's not. Um, I have received concerns that the signage in Skyline is not as good as it might be for patients trying to wayfind their way to clinic or someone else in the building elsewhere. Is Sarah in the room? You weren't at the morning meeting that came up. It needs to be on the list to take a look, please, Sarah. Also, concerns about the unlocked door versus the locked door in Skyline we need to take a look at. Um, the third rail of every administration is parking. What's going to happen when we have a fourth class of dental students and the dental clinic gets bigger with a finite number of parking spaces? We're working on a plan for it. I'm no position to uh, tell you any details, with one big issue. We cannot have a parking system on this campus in which anyone can have multiple parking spaces because they want to have a place to park at Skyline and one next to Sunshine and what? No, no, it's not doable unless I pave the whole place. No. Um, we got a shuttle bus. I ride my bike. God willing, you can walk, which right now I can't. And it's okay. My bicycle odometer says it's 0.4 miles from Skyline to my bicycle parking place at Sunshine. It's not the University of Michigan or Duke. I cannot give anybody multiple parking places. And call the van; they'll pick you up and take you where you need to go from Bradhurst to anywhere else. For those who've expressed a concern about culling library journals, I like to go browsing in the library. I was raised that way. I'm a dinosaur. Um, you're all hip and modern. I'm a dinosaur. Uh, Maintaining high-priced real estate smack in the middle of this building with storing things that nobody uses is not efficient. Marie Asher and her team have a meticulous system of analyzing usage patterns. And if nobody's asked for it in a long time and you can get it other ways, we're not storing it in perpetuity because someone wants to be sure that they can immediately lay their hands on the 1958 edition of the journal. We got computers now there, and it's almost all there. And she goes through the process, and the librarians are not in the dead of night hiding what you wanted. There's a system. We have a faculty library committee. She didn't do it on her own. Uh, the time I worked at North Carolina State, even at that time, 25 years ago, most of what you wanted, it wasn't there. You filled out the card and the van delivered it to you twice a day because it was an off-campus storage. Um, that's the way the world's going with libraries. There are a special place in heaven for librarians. I love librarians. We are nice to librarians. Do not be mean to the librarians. Um, Okay, friends, that was what was on my list for today. I'm happy to talk about either whatever you want to question or ask about, or if I left something off my list that you need to announce, please do so. Please use the microphones or ask them to hand them to you so everyone can hear. Please, the microphone.
We have a lot of patients in the clinic that do walk around the buildings looking for a cup of coffee, wandering into different offices. I know the dental students are doing that, and now we're going to have dental students on the second floor, as I understand. Is there any security that's going to be increased, key carding for wings or anything? Because patients are just walking all over.
Yeah. That when I went through my anticipating questions, that's what I meant when I was talking about the two doors. It's a general look at security and Skyline. However, I'm not going to make up any stories for you. This is the way I lived for 25 years at Duke. I had an office in a clinical building with people coming and going. There is no security system I can give you that if you share offices with patients and other traffic that unless you all decide you're going to lock your individual door and put your pocketbooks and wallets in your desk and lock them, and live like that, there will always be a risk if you have a shared building, and we are going to have a shared building. We are not building a separate dental school clinic building. This is what we knew we were going to get into when we had Skyline. I think we can do better, but I would recommend to everyone reasonable common sense precautions. The biggest problem I had at Duke was people leaving their pocketbooks under their desks or next to their chair and walking away with their doors open and coming back and the pocketbook was gone. And that's the fact. Okay, you can't do that in a shared building unless you lock your door or put something in a locked desk. And it will be a shared building. Yes, I think we can do better, but I can't turn it into Fort Knox. And that's just planning, okay? It's not so easy to get to my office, but people are coming and they're living UPSs and FedExes and they're lost in the directions. And I don't leave stuff lying around if I can help it either. It's just, I got used to it because that way, the way it was for most of my clinical practice. It's a shared building. I thought I saw other hands. Please, Carl, use the microphone, Carl, please. So, I want everyone to be able to hear.
Could you introduce our new dean? Could you introduce our new dean?
May I introduce the Dean of the School of Medicine, Jerry Nadler. Okay, since we did that, may I introduce the Dean of the Graduate School for those of you who perhaps haven't been paying attention, Marina Holtz. Yeah. I leave anybody else out that this is, I mean, in case you didn't know we had new deans, this is my favorite was the member of the faculty who stopped me in the cafeteria not too long ago and said, "We doing something with that Dana Road building?" And it was, what else? Anything's fair game. We'll either need to come up to the microphone or they'll need to pass it back to you, because I'll never hear you.
Hi, I came in a little bit late. I heard you mention that there might be a change
I'm
in
sorry,
the,
I can't hear you.
I heard you mention there might be a change in the insurance. I know we have an upcoming enrollment. Would that be then for the following year? Going from Blue Cross to United, I
Yeah.
heard you say?
Timeline for what?
Change in the insurance, health insurance.
You want to speak to it, Tom?
You said, right?
Use the mic. This is Mr. Modero from the HR who,
Thank you. Open enrollment will begin May 8th and will close on May 23rd. Your elections in medical, dental, vision, and other benefits will be effective for the new plan year, which is coincident with the fiscal year beginning July 1st. We have 2 information sessions planned for New York Medical College, both on May 15th. The benefits guides are being created and printed and will be sent shortly, first via a PDF on email, and then available for handout in the HR offices and at the enrollment sessions. We're going to record one of the enrollment sessions and make it available online if you're unavailable to attend in person. So the quick answer is effective July 1st, with enrollment occurring between May 8th and May 23rd. July 1st this year. It is effective with this enrollment in May for the year that begins July 1st.
While you're there, Bill, would you, since I'm not sure everybody reads your emails, could you describe the issue about the person who got arrested and what the crime was, since people are concerned about it, about things not to do and to be careful about? But take the microphone. There's,
Hello, everybody. So if you all recall, back in August of 2018, I sent out a security bulletin about a credit card theft that had occurred in the Vosburg Pavilion. It was a credit card that was stolen from a unattended pocketbook in a unlocked office. The same day, we determined that there was an individual who had piggybacked into the School of Health Science and Practice doors, who was walking around. Actually went through several offices. Unfortunately, nobody challenged him, even though many people in their gut were concerned about why he was in this building. Anyway, at the end of the day, we were unable to identify that individual initially, but now 6-8 months later, after he did the same crime in 6 more colleges and a middle school, he was finally apprehended out in Garden City, Long Island, and he's going to face charges of burglary and grand larceny here at New York Medical College. So again, echoing Dr. Halpern, keep your valuables safe and secure. If you see something, say something. If you're suspicious about somebody, give us a call and we can investigate it immediately. If I addressed what you were asking.
thank you. And for those who haven't met, Bill's in charge of campus security. Okay, there are 2 things no one's asked me yet, so for as a broken record, but I'll say it again, this year's graduation is our last year in Carnegie Hall. Next year, the Westchester County Center. Okay? We look forward to a good and fun graduation, and after that, we will wish Carnegie Hall and its difficulties and prices all the best. And nobody asked about what's going on with LCME. Jennifer, could I ask you to take the microphone and give the 2-minute update about how much fun you're having with the LCME and how you wouldn't give it up for the world, and it's your favorite activity?
Well, then there's no more to say. No, so I think that all of you have been to several of our town hall sessions, so we're still continuing to work on certain areas that the LCME wants us to report back on. And it involves a lot of our interactions with our curriculum. It involves our interactions with the medical students and increasing our communications. We've made lots of headway. We still have a long way to go. Everyone who is on our equip team has been very interactive. We're working with the Student Senate to get some additional feedback from our students with our annual report card. And we're working with the students to make sure that they have a fair representation in terms of their responsiveness to this, so that we're able to use that information and continue to improve the program.
Dana, maybe a word or 2 about how we're doing with Middle States, please.
Yeah, so we are up for Middle States accreditation. That's the accreditation for the entire college, so it covers all 3 colleges. So it's very, very important, because if we don't get Middle States accreditation, we don't get loans for any of the students in any of the different colleges and schools. Middle States is every 8 years now. They've changed it, and they've changed some of the criteria. We are in the process right now of forming some of the committees that are going to take us through Middle States accreditation. We're working on what's called a self-study design, which basically has to be approved by Middle States before we go forward with it. Very importantly, we have a visit coming from our liaison, Sean McKittrick, on July 10th. He is going to be meeting with a lot of different people in the college, including probably some open meetings. This is not actually to give us a hard time about accreditation. What he is here for is to actually help us plan. Talk to us, inform us of some of the things we need to know, and help us in the process. We are up for our visit from the Middle States accreditors probably just after July 2021. So we will get our Middle States self-study design approved this summer. And in August, we'll start the self-study process with the different groups that will be spinning off of what's currently going on with the strategic planning groups for the strategic plan for the college. And we will be keeping you all up to date on the progress of Middle States and probably asking a lot of you to participate in different ways, whether it's joining some of the groups or getting information from you that we're going to need for the process. But bottom line is we're in good shape for it. We've got some time to work on it. We're right on schedule.
In this part of the country, if you are not fully accredited by Middle States, then the Department of Education says you can't have student loans and you're out of business. And so you don't argue with them, you just do what they say. Maybe while we're on this theme, Ronnie, you want to tell them about how we did with CODA, please? For those of you who haven't met, since Carl makes me feel guilty, the Dean of the School of Dentistry, Ronnie Myhurst. And the abbreviation is called CODA, Council on Dental Accreditation.
Thanks. Also, just like to make a plea that when exiting Skyline Drive to 9A, that the left-hand turn is a very dangerous one, and you can go on Skyline Drive to the right and get to a light. It's just a plea, and I urge everybody to do that. So the Commission on Dental Accreditation visits a new school actually 3 times in the 4 years that they're developing. Once before the first class gets there, halfway through the program, which they did last April, and actually 1 year from yesterday, will come for their final site visit in April of 2020. At our mid-site cycle site visit last year in April, there are 65 must statements and standards that you comply with. We were unfortunately to be unsuccessful in only 1, which was a good thing. And we had to supply the commission with a progress report at their January meeting, which we did to address the recommendation that we had. That was our progress report, and I'm very, very happy to report that they accepted our progress report, and we didn't have to do anything else until the site visit that occurs next April. However, with that being said, we now have a self-study that starts actually just yesterday for the next year, so we could submit our documents for our last site visit, April 2020.
Thanks, Ronnie. It's worth dwelling about what he just said, right? We went from a first hypothetical planning meeting in Manhattan, should we ever talk about having a dental school, in December 2012, to 8 years later, graduating the first class, going into the match, and having the final accreditation visit. I would submit that in higher education, that's a warp speed, right? Most universities would be thinking about having their 3rd planning meeting in that period of time to this. No kidding about what Ronnie said. Okay, our primary job, members of the faculty and staff and administration, is to maintain a safe learning environment. I am worried that someone's going to get killed making a left turn onto a Sawmill Road. Trying to get a traffic light there or rerouting is devastatingly difficult to do. We've looked into it. Studies, investigations, State Highway Department, years and years and no guarantee of success. Please watch where you're going. You really can't see when they're coming from that direction over the hill coming down if you're going to make a turn into traffic. You're supposed to make a turn and go out and come out near the executive diner where there is a traffic light. It takes an extra 60 or 90 seconds. No one can be in that much of a rush that they're going to get themselves killed doing that. Okay, end of my sermon. But, is there a microphone we can give to Jennifer, let her have the last word and tell us about the strategic, over in this side, this side.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Rickert, and I just want to talk to you a little bit about the strategic planning process. I'm sure you've received emails on this, and we are wrapping up our strategic plan this year. So that means that we need to focus on the strategic planning process for the upcoming 5 years. And we've been tracking our progress on the current plan, and we shall be very proud that many of the things that we said we were going to do, that we've actually done. We have upgraded the Dana Road facility. We now have a biotechnology incubator. We have the clinical skills. We've welcomed the dental school. So the things that we have set forth as a community and said, these are things we plan to do over those 5 years, we have completed. And that strategic plan ends this year. So next year in 2020, we'll be launching the next strategic plan that'll take us through the next 5 years. And this plan is a community-wide process. So I want to thank all of you that have already responded to the mission, vision, and core values survey and gave us your feedback. We actually received 438 responses so far, so thank you for that. The next thing you'll receive is a survey asking for your feedback on the strengths of the organization, areas we need to improve, and where we see ourselves going over the next 5 years. And we have a strategic planning committee that is broken up into 5 subcommittees, for example, education, research, community engagement, and so on. And so all of that feedback will be reviewed by those subcommittees. And based on that feedback, we'll be setting the strategic goals moving forward. And once we have a strategic plan written, it'll be reviewed by leadership and as well as the board. So anything we do needs to be approved by them, but it'll be a voice from everyone. So we encourage you to engage in this process, give us your feedback. We'll also be hosting 2 live events next month, so you can also hear more about the very specific details of the process and give us your feedback. So again, just want to thank everyone for being a part of this process and helping us create a path moving us forward for the next 5 years.
Thanks, Jen. Okay, while we're all here, one other thing, and then I'll wrap up since it looks like we don't have any other hands up. A medical student was hit by a car a couple of weeks ago crossing Sunshine Cottage Road. The injuries were serious, but certainly not life-threatening. Everyone, please, we have sidewalks. Don't walk in the roads. It's a heavily trafficked area. Please cross at the crosswalks. Please watch where you're going. Look left and right. Cell phones are wonderful things and text messages and stuff. Look where you're going. When you're driving, do the same thing. I'm not laying any specific blame for this particular event, but let's all go about our business doing research and teaching and learning, and let's not get anybody hurt if at all possible. Please, let's remember the stuff the safety patrol taught us when we were in grade school. Watch where you're walking, watch where you're going, watch out for traffic when you're walking around campus, please. The State of the Union is excellent. We've had year after year of better and better quality students applying and matriculating in our schools. The School of Medicine had a wonderful match. The School of Dentistry will have its first match coming up in this academic year. The students in our other clinical programs of speech pathology and physical therapy have full employment and magnificent board passage rates. We are graduating PhD and master's students. We are opening new programs. We have a budget in the black. Many of you are doing better and better with funding. I wish I could tell you as Chancellor, everything is perfect and will be perfect, and there's a continued unbroken upward chain of events, but that is not within my power to do. It's always a tough business in higher education, but we should all be proud because of what you're doing. Great things are happening, and thank you. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for listening. If you didn't want to raise your hand and want to come up and tell me something, I'll be here. Thanks. Have a good day, everyone.